It's been a while, but another balance patch has hit the servers, and this one might be the most unique of all of them. Let's start right off the bat. This is a nerf patch. Most characters did get one or two small buffs, but the changes this time around are much more conservative, with the nerfs taking full stage instead. So without further ado, let's see what the devs have been cooking up. First up are changes to Risk. Previously, having Risk would prevent combo scaling, letting certain combos do huge damage with just a little bit of Risk. Now, Risk has been changed to be a multiplier, increasing damage of single hits by the amount of Risk gauge you had filled. You can see the damage difference for Soul's combo here. The biggest ramification of this by far is how it affects strong single hit attacks. Now, if you have a move that does a lot of damage, or you can hit reliably, cranking Risk and hitting it just once or twice can win you the round, improving the performance of characters with limited combos post-hit such as Anji or Nago, who I'd guess are the biggest beneficiaries of this change. Red Wild Assault was nerfed significantly, no longer being cancelable when blocked. This means Red Wild Assault only has utility as a combo extension tool, and you can't crank Risk by doing repeated Red Wild Assault block strings. I think this is a great change. Red Wild Assault always felt a little too generally applicable compared to Blue and White, and while this nerf is harsh, I'm interested to see an era where Red Wild Assault may not be the objectively best Wild Assault to have. Blue Wild Assault had its combo utility nerfed, but its on-block situation remains the same. White Wild Assault also got nerfed significantly, as you can no longer RC it just like a DP, meaning if they block it, you're minus, no ifs, ands, or buts. I personally think the writing's on the wall here. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think we'll be seeing a Blue Wild Assault heavy meta this season. Stagger State had its mash requirement removed, meaning you can no longer fail to escape it. I'm sure the 90-year-old XX players are losing their minds right now, but the amount of staggers you could mash out of was like 2 or 3 across the entire game, and the rest of them just lasted long enough that the mash didn't matter, so I'm glad to see it gone. It was kind of a useless mechanic. YRC had its pushback increased significantly, pushing the opponent to mid-range instead of keeping them close. Out of all the system changes, I'm afraid of this one the most. It seems mostly innocent, but by not allowing you to take your turn after YRC, characters who box you in the corner well like Ram, Nago, Johnny, etc. are going to have an easier time locking you down than ever before. We'll see how this pans out. Our final system change is a huge one, and it's that after 4 years of Strive, Super PRC is dead. You can still PRC your Super Startup to keep the invuln, but it takes 100 meter now instead of the 50 it did before, essentially making the tech obsolete. Souls received a small buff to his conversions, while surprisingly losing Kara Wild Throw. Souls 2S has received Stagger State on counter hit, letting him combo into full charged NRV for a combo. And Wild Throw can no longer be Kara cancelled into. Every character got some various bug fixes too, Soul included, but just a reminder that I won't be covering those here unless they have major gameplay ramifications. The 2S change is nice, but was the Wild Throw change really needed? Not that I'm too upset, most Souls couldn't do the tech anyways, but I just didn't think it was a problem. I guess they did, so whatever. Soul's about the same numbers-wise, but the Red Wild Assault nerfs probably hurt him quite a bit. No compensation buffs in what I think a lot of people would consider Soul's weakest state ever is a little rough, but it's not like he's bad, so whatever. Kai's our first winner of the patch, getting huge improvements to Stun Dipper, and enhancing his general flowchart all around. Kai's 2S got buffed, getting a bigger hit and hurt box, while also reducing its knockback, letting it combo into 5H more consistently. Charge Stun Edge got a higher launch on its final hit, meaning that if you meaty with it and open the opponent up with Dust, Kai can get a combo now, which is a huge deal for his offensive potential. Even bigger though is what they did to Stun Dipper. First of all, the first hit launches, so there's no more sour hit Stun Dipper where Kai just ends up minus. If Stun Dipper hits you, that second hit is gonna connect. Additionally, that second hit has also been buffed. It's the same on normal hit, but if the opponent has Shock State, it results in a hard knockdown. I don't even need to explain why it's really good for a character like Kai to get hard knockdown off of Stun Dipper. Do I? Sacred Edge also got a slightly bigger hitbox in the back, making it harder to IID over. But who cares? All in all, Kai's neutral, offense, and routing all see significant improvement this patch, and I'm betting on him rising up the tier list. Mei has surprisingly received nothing but buffs, getting improvements to her conversion ability at long ranges. Farslash and 2S both have reduced knockback, letting Mei get S-Dolphin on normal hit consistently. 2S also gets a new stagger on counter hit, which lets Mei combo into overhead kiss should she wish to route into the command grab. Lastly, her JK got a bigger hurt box. Mei dodging nerfs is pretty wild considering her current strength, but she is very underrepresented in the US especially, so it doesn't shock me that they buffed her a little anyways. If you are a Mei player though, you probably feel like you dodged a bullet with this one. While I don't think he's going to be topping any tier lists, Axl got a set of buffs that are absolutely nothing to scoff at, finally letting the man do actual mid-screen combos and juicing reward off even his safest pokes. The change responsible is Axl's 6K, which lost its wall bounce, but gained Tumble State on hit, and also launches grounded opponents. This means Axl can Gatling any applicable normal into 6K for a full combo anywhere on screen. A far cry from having to do single hit confirms into Snail for near zero damage. On top of that, Snail also hard knockdowns now, meaning after said combo finishes, Axl can actually run some Oki nowadays. Crazy stuff. Chipp's only got one change, but it's a change he's needed for a long time. Chipp's 2D had its initial hurt box shrunk, meaning Chipp finally has a consistent answer to strong 2Ks or other low-profile pokes. This is a big deal for him, and given that he's got no nerfs to go alongside it, I'd keep an eye on him this patch. This was his biggest weakness by far, and it's completely axed. Pot's our first character who they really took the balancing lever to, and surprisingly to none, most of their changes are nerfs. Pot had his defense lowered from 0.87 to 0.91, slightly reducing his survivability. Mega Fist Forward sees a slew of changes. Its startup was made slower, it's received more landing recovery, and its numbers as a combo tool have been weakened. But in exchange, it bounces higher, meaning you'll get a combo more often, but the combo will have worse damage numbers than it used to. Slidehead's also seen a rework, notably losing its armor entirely. To balance this out, they reduced the move's combo scaling and shrunk its hurtbox a bit. Hammerfall has reduced movement speed, making it worse as an approach tool and weakening Pot's Oki. He can still double buster you mid-screen though, don't worry Pot players. But his more niche combo enders should have their Oki situation weakened. Flick got its startup reduced by 1 frame for some reason. Pot's changes seem really bad, but in practice, he functions like he used to. Some of his knockdowns are worse, and that's rough. But at the end of the day, he can still set up Gigantic High and win the round in one hit, and that's all he ever really needed. I'd wager he's probably not top 1 this season, but I don't think he's dead in the water like some people hope. Faust has received quality of life improvements centered around making his conversions more consistent. Far Slash has reduced knockback, making it combo into 2H consistently. 6H lost its stagger, instead gaining a ground bounce, forcing Faust to change his routing off it, but all in all, it's for the better. Mix 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 got reduced horizontal knockback for the final hit, letting Faust connect into close slash more consistently. These Faust changes are nice, but not monumental if you ask me. I think he'll perform better for sure, but I'm not expecting to see any "is Faust secretly top 1" posts on my timeline. Millia also sees buffs to her combo structure, albeit quite a bit more significantly than Faust. S-Disc received a bigger hitbox and better launch, letting Millia RC to combo off it, something she previously couldn't do. But the real star for her is Artemis. Instead of giving a stagger, this move now launches on ground hit, letting Millia pick up into a full combo and wall break you, no counter hit necessary. This character's combos keep getting better and better and better. I could imagine seeing her getting some pretty reasonable success following these changes. Eddie may finally be free after all this time, with Zato receiving a new special move and a couple mild buffs alongside it. First up, Eddie now responds differently when hit by Gold Burst, recovering his gauge from the position it was upon death instead of from the very bottom. Super nice quality of life for Zato players. Oppose got a list of mild buffs, reducing its startup and increasing the proximity requirement for the snake bites to hit the opponent. But we all know what you're here for, the new move, Float. Float lets Zato turn Eddie into a flying Labubu for a short duration. Zato can then negative edge any attack button to launch Labubu Eddie at 4 differing angles. The cool thing about this is Eddie follows Zato into the air, letting him do some really creative setups combining flight with Labubu. Lastly, Drunkard Shade received projectile invulnerability. This doesn't affect its properties when reflecting projectiles, but projectiles that couldn't be reflected used to just hit Zato outright. Now they at least pass through. I'm not a Zato player, so I can't really tell you how big a deal Labubu Eddie is, but I can tell you that it'll give something Zato players to lab for at least another few years until the move is completely figured out. And that's all you really want anyways, right? No? You wanted him to be top tier again? Rams received a pretty even spread of buffs and nerfs, much to the shock of everyone who thought she'd get dumpstered this patch. SQ fans rejoice, as Rams 2D has received a range buff and new VFX alongside it. What's wilder is that this move didn't go from bad to mediocre. This sweep has some serious range and converts into massive combos. This is getting chopped off Ram's weaknesses section and going right into strengths. That's kinda wild. Careful you don't get whiplash though, because up next, Ram's JH was nerfed significantly, losing almost all of its active frames and getting an extra 6 frames of landing recovery. Ram's Sword Toss had its block stun nerfed for the initial hitbox, meaning she can't jail you nearly as easily, giving the opponent a chance to jump out if she isn't spaced close enough. The explosion keeps the same block stun, but it loses active frames, so if you do jump the sword, you won't accidentally fall into the explosion as often. Ram's Dive Kick also got a pretty big nerf, increasing its recovery, making it go from +2 on block to -6, making it punishable with a particularly large 5 frame. Ondo got a big rework this patch, going from a plus on block reset tool to a safe mid-range combo ender. It's lost its plus frames, but become much faster in startup, active, and recovery, meaning the opponent can't punish Ram if they jump it anymore. This will make Ram's offense, particularly in the corner, much less egregious, and make it harder for her to stall for her swords to return, especially with the loss of Red Wild Assault block strings. It's hard to say how any of it will shape out, but Ram certainly won't be looping you for the entire round off one blocked attack anymore, which is a huge cut to her viability. Leo's received some nerfs to his back turn state, along with another big patch headline that'll be sure to shock any longtime players. Starting off slow, his sweep has less knockdown now, granting him back turn Oki. However, Leo loses back turn Oki off H flash kick, which, if you've played since launch, you realize I basically just told you water lost its ability to fill the shape of its container. Basically, it's just a regular old move now, nothing noteworthy about it. Talk about the end of an era. Leo also gets a slap on the wrist for back turn H, giving it less block stun and more pushback, making it tougher for Leo to drop stance and continue pressure, but still possible. This HDP change is a huge deal, and it makes his previously incredible reward off jabs and K-normals far less impressive. I'd imagine Leo's going to feel a whole lot weaker in neutral thanks to this nerf, but his core game plan shouldn't shift too hard, so I don't think it's time to drop him or anything if you're a Leo main. You'll just have to learn how to play him with different goals. He is for sure worse though, won't argue that. Nago similarly has a couple mild to moderate quality of life changes, and then one massive headline that I'd expect everyone but the Nago players to be ecstatic for. First off, 5H has reduced knockback on hit. It looks kinda silly if you ask me, but it allows Nago to get a meaty close slash, which is a pretty solid buff for his high blood game plan, basically guaranteeing that hitting the opponent at blood level 2 puts Nago back into his win con. But that's where the good news ends, because Beyblade has been reverted from a low back to a mid. That's right, no more full screen random Beyblade clipping your backwalk into GG's Shake My Hand. DP also got nerfed, reducing the amount of time you can delay its second hit, breaking Nago's meaty setup where he'd whiff the first hit, then go lower overhead, which was a pretty popular mix-up. Lastly, Nago also received a slight change to the way blood affects his HP. If you're a Nago player, I think it's easy to look at the patch and think he's screwed, but I really don't think so. The Beyblade and DP changes are rough, definitely not balanced out by the 5H one, but when you remember the risk changes, things become a little nicer. Geo gets huge buffs to enhance Sepultura, and mostly stays the same other than that. Geo's defense modifier from Possession has been changed slightly, similar to Nago's with his blood level. Enhanced Sepultura gets its startup absolutely juiced, going from 13 frames to 5 frame startup, and going from -5 to -3 on block. Geo travels further on activation, and the opponent is pushed back less, meaning this move will come out much quicker than before, and she'll stick to you real close even after her pressure comes to a close. Another patch of burfs goes to Anji Mito, getting one buff, one nerf, and absolutely nothing else. Starting with the buff, 2H is actually a move that does something now. Crazy, right? The attack had its startup increased, but is now +6 on block, giving it a role as a reset/meaty tool. The startup on it is very high, and Anji cannot string into it without losing to mash or backdash, so keep that in mind when using it. As for the nerf, Fish receives a cut to its on-block effect, losing the guard crush and going from +1,000,000 to -2. I think that's a fair nerf. Fish doesn't get blocked in most matchups anyways, barring the use of RC, and the opponent will still have to respect a restagger if Anji decides to delay the Fish or go for a close slash, so this isn't too big a deal. The 2H change, while nice, does still have a lot of pushback, making it hard to use, but maybe as time goes on, it'll find a place in some setups here and there. Ino got a simple buff to her 5H, giving it forward momentum, but also a surprising nerf to MLA, increasing its startup to reactable levels, but giving her a more consistent conversion on hit. All in all, this is kind of just a flat-out nerf, which is surprising. I don't think many people had Ino at the top of their lists. Now if we want to talk about who was at the top of people's lists, we gotta mention Goldlewis, and they did not forget about him. First up, his defense was reduced. His JD was turned into an almost reasonable move, cutting its active frames over slightly half, but giving it a slightly bigger hitbox. All grounded BTs were given a max level counter hit effect. Grounded BTs were juiced, but air BTs were shot hard, losing their hard knockdown. This means Goldlewis doesn't get Oki off JD anymore, which is a huge deal, as this was the primary way he'd open you up in neutral. Goldlewis players are really unhappy with this one, but I think he'll live. He's not going to stick around in the top 5 if you're asking me, but I don't think he's going to be bad, or even mid if I'm honest. Jacko's received some buffs that confuse me. Let me explain. Countdown is the focus of this patch for her, having a much faster timer before the explosion, rewarding a hard knockdown, and allowing her to use shield command to guard the detonate, which sounds great. In theory. First up, you can't shield the detonate with the minion who's detonating. And since Jacko commands all minions at once, in order to shield the detonate, you need to start the command, place another minion, and then shield it with the new one, which is something she generally doesn't have the time to do when trying to set up against an opponent with brain cells in the plural. And, did you notice that? I don't know if this is a bug, but if you do shield the explosion, detonate loses the hard knockdown. Why? I don't know. I'm not gonna give it to you yet. You'll have to try harder than that. This move still sucks, and I won't be convinced by your silly Twitter clips. Happy chaos. He's done it again, guys. No J2K nerfs, a buff to clone, he's a blue wild assault user, and only the smallest of nerfs to normals that weren't even a huge problem in the first place. 2S got increased recovery. 6S has reduced forward momentum. Clone has been reworked to be a portable corner. This move now summons the clone far ahead of Chaos, and behind the opponent if he's close enough, letting him sandwich the opponent between it and run his pressure. This is another monumental accountability dodge from Guilty Gear's most remorseless top tier. Even the Chaos players are saying he's gonna be broken this patch. I'm a Baiken believer till the day I die, and this patch, while including a nerf she'll definitely feel, all in all rounds her combo game out to make her more consistent. Baiken's 2H received reduced knockback and reduced pushback in the corner, meaning it combos into H Kabari no matter what instead of randomly dropping. Greatly appreciated for sure. Yozansen lost its lower hitbox during startup, meaning IAD back Yozansen is no longer as dreadful an air option as it used to be, which definitely stings for Baiken. Parry now clears your input history after a connect, which doesn't sound like a buff, but in practice, it is. This is because Baiken previously had a problem where if she guard canceled a normal, then tried to tether the opponent, she'd get a reversal super, lose her meter and her life. Now, there's no risk of this mistake. Testament also sees improvements to their combo structure thanks to new knockdowns. 2D has less knockback. Stain no longer pops from OTG hits. Unholy Diver now results in a hard knockdown. Given that it stains the opponent and hard knockdowns now, this is probably how Testament will want to end their combos. Bridget got a couple enhancements to her combos too, focusing on her low damage. Now she has a couple options to increase it. 2H had its launch height and angle reduced on block. Charged Roll gets its damage almost doubled, from 32 to 55. Air Rock the Baby has been reworked into a combo tool. It's had various changes to its momentum, and now can grab an opponent and hit stun like Axl's command grab. Additionally, Air Rock the Baby forces a wall break on connect, which, to be honest, is probably a bad thing, given Bridget has an air super she could wall break with instead, but any high damage combo tool is appreciated for her. I don't know how impactful this patch will be for her. If the damage numbers see significantly increased expected value, it could be huge, but I don't think these are near as potent as some other buffs. Sin had the balancing gun pointed at him, and he got his insane mid-screen combos shot dead. Starting with normal adjustments, Sin's 2K got one more recovery frame, making it slightly less useful in neutral. Sin's JS got 2 more active frames and a larger hitbox, making this a pretty darn impressive air normal now. But here come the nerfs. Beak Driver follow-up had reduced stagger duration, meaning Sin has to pick up with 2K for a combo instead of close slash, scaling the combo a lot harder than before. Elk Hunt lost its combo entirely, no longer allowing for an extension at all if it's the first hit of a combo. Last on the chopping block is Hoof Stomp's follow-up, which also lost its conversion. At least mid-screen. It got a new wall bounce, so you still get a combo in the corner, but reducing his mid-screen potency this much is really gonna leave a mark. Overall, I think Sin got it pretty rough this patch. He was very strong, but all 3 of his strongest specials had their combos nerfed pretty hard. And considering that the reason he was strong in the first place was because he could spend all his stamina, then just use Wild Assault to stall for its recovery, I think he's actually in a sorer spot than the patch notes imply. Sorry, Sin players. Bedman's had some interesting, but controversial changes. Let me explain. To get it out of the way, Bedman's HP got nerfed alongside the other big bodies, but that's not what I'm talking about. Bedman's other change was to Needle, giving it a launch when connecting at close range. In a vacuum, this is great, as it means Bedman can no longer fire Needle too close and end up punishable on hit, meaning they actually have a real block string ender now. The problem? A lot of Bedman's combos relied on using Needle to stall for an automatic arrow to pop. Now if you use those routes, the Needle knocks the opponent out of the way and the combo drops. I'm not a Bedman player, so I don't know how bad this really is, so we'll leave Bedman as the wild card of the patch. Asuka sees a pretty competent list of buffs and a rework to his most volatile card. He actually got a rebalance to his deck composition, losing a Howling Metron from Test Case 2 and replacing it with Aquila Metron, which was the DP. And yes, I did mean to say was, because Aquila has been reworked entirely. It's lost its invul, but now freezes the opponent into Dizzy's frozen state on hit, making it a combo extension and resource recovery spell. Recover Mana Instant now recovers more mana instantly. High Gravity Staff received a new ground bounce property when opponents are hit by affected projectiles. And Draw Super now has less passive mana drain during use. Asuka's got a list of simple yet effective buffs, and that's all he really needed. Last patch left him by the wayside a bit, so it's good to see him get a general power boost. Johnny was this year's EVO champion, and Arxis definitely saw it happen, because he was not spared from the nerfs this time. First off, they've put the Achilles heel back into Johnny, as his dash speed has been reduced significantly, making it harder to position, making dash throws a lot less scary, and forcing him to accept much worse Oki off a lot of his hits than he used to get. Johnny's backdash is getting added to the general diagnosis of bad dash as well, as it's had its recovery increased to match that of a heavier backdash like Goldlewis or Potemkin. Johnny did get a small buff to Far Slash, having less knockback and confirming into 5H consistently, but 5H itself got a big increase to its knockback, making it overall harder for Johnny to combo into Wild Assault or Mistfiner at long ranges. Vault now throws the card much lower than it used to, meaning Johnny loses access to his DLRC setups that involved throwing the card early, then RCing for an air Mistfiner mix-up. He's not high enough in the air to do it anymore. Johnny's certainly looking worse for wear this patch. The dash change alone ruins a lot of his setups, and the Vault and 5H changes cover most of the remaining setups that weren't broken from the dash. Unfortunately, Elphelt was standing next to Johnny at the time of the balance changes, and ended up in a civilian casualty incident. She did get one nice thing, and it's that 5HH no longer launches the opponent. It staggers, meaning Elphelt can actually use it to confirm into bridle or other moves now. But sadly for her, the obituary starts here. Elphelt's Rekka lost its ability to rebeat, meaning no matter what, Elphelt only gets to do 2 follow-ups from the initial Rekka. It can be overhead low, low low, mid low, whatever you want, but she can't restart her Rekka from the top at all anymore. And in case you thought you were clever, you can't cancel Elphelt's Dash Kara into Here I Go to restart the loop, as it's hard-coded to be disallowed as a cancel in this specific situation. The high Rekka did get a slightly improved hitbox, which does affect her in a notable way. Now the first hit lands slightly earlier than it used to on crouchers, meaning both the high and low from the Rekka hit on the exact same frame, removing the need to delay the low a bit if you wanted to be immune to fuzzy blocking. Sadly, Elphelt's not in the clear yet, as Bomb Vest took a hit too. It does launch the opponent on grounded hit, but the opponent can now hit Elphelt to remove the vest, meaning she can no longer just put the vest on to guarantee she wins the next interaction no matter what. Look, I'll come out and say Elphelt was always one of the game's worst designed characters, but this feels like a really big miss on balancing her out in my opinion. Now that Rekka only has 2 follow-ups, I find myself wondering what makes Elphelt a unique character worth picking anymore. Ram and Chipp have 3-stage Rekkas, and Anji has a 2-stage Rekka with a built-in high-low. She's lost her identity and her strength, and despite my belief that she was one of, if not the most toxic character the game's ever seen, I don't think she deserved this much comeuppance. Hopefully in Strive 2, we'll see a major Elphelt rework, because as things now, I think it's clear they don't know what to do with her kit. Abba received a nice change to manage her Jealous gauge better, and a nerf to her most broken special to balance it out. Both Abba's ground and air throw no longer consume Jealousy gauge during their animation, meaning throwing people doesn't come with the tax of 20% of your bar anymore. That's really solid. In exchange, Hopkick's Jealous version lost a lot of its high profile, lessening its utility as a catch-all neutral tool and emphasizing it as a mix-up. Slayer's got some nerfs to Hand of Doom, which put it closer to similar reset tools, and got his Jab Confirms buffed a bit to help soothe the pain. Both Slayer's 5 and 2p got increased attack level, but added recovery. Their advantage on block stays the same, but this allows new routing from counter hit 2 and 5p, as it'll combo into 6h without a crouch confirm now. 2h received increased launch distance on counter hit, making it tougher to pick up with close slash. Master's Hammer sees a buff to its block stun, but a nerf to its recovery, keeping it exactly the same on block, but making it easier to punish Slayer when you react with a jump. The moves on hit properties have been buffed, getting a hard knockdown and a better launch on counter hit. Dizzy sees buffs to her neutral tools to make her a more effective zoner. Dizzy's Far Slash sees its already microscopic hurtbox shrunk. You won't be out poking this button anytime soon. 2S got a hitbox extension, making it a little more worth pressing. Dizzy's Icicle had its active frames shot to the moon, going from 16 to 36 frame active. Funny that they basically took Ram's giant active Spear of Destruction, flipped it upside down, and gave it to Dizzy. Additionally, Frozen State doesn't wall stick anymore, giving Dizzy an opportunity to choose whether to reset the opponent or not, even when the wall is heavily scaled. S. Michael's sword no longer tumbles the opponent, but results in a hard knockdown instead. Venom got the special treatment this patch, with by far the longest list of buffs, and it looks like his core game plan is going to function a lot better now. Starting off, the ball itself has received numerous changes. It went from 30 to 40 damage, meaning Venom's zoning sees a damage increase of 33.3%. You'll also be getting peppered by more of them, as the balls now persist on the screen after their initial hit for much longer, initially being 2 seconds, but now sitting at 5. 5k got a bigger hit and hurt box. 2h sees reduced horizontal knockback, keeping the opponent closer for easier combos. 5p and JP now hit balls a little farther. JS and JH got special hitboxes added to the end of their active frames that only hit balls, improving Venom's consistency when trying to move them around the screen. In addition, JK and JS's hitboxes were expanded slightly. QV got a hitbox buff for its uncharged variant. Carcass Raid got a damage buff for the first hit of all versions. S Carcass Raid specifically got juice to match the strength of the H version, getting a smaller juggle and more risk reduction, but going from -3 to +5. H Carcass Raid was already plus, so instead they reduced the speed of the ball shot. Maybe this makes a setup more consistent? I don't know. Venom Bros are definitely eating this patch. This is a very competent list of buffs, and fixes a lot of the issues the character had. Whether he'll be good or just alright remains to be seen, but I don't think he's going to be outright bad anymore, which is great. If you like Venom, now's the time to invest. He'll probably only go up from here. Unika's only got one change. Her slide can now no longer hit opponents behind her by adding a proximity requirement to the front of the attack. That covers the whole patch. So what do I think? Despite the fact that I remained a little more critical this video than in previous patch videos, I actually really like this patch. I think it's because of how well thought out most of these changes are that the strange ones really stand out, but even then, it's not that bad. YRC isn't more toxic, it's just toxic in a different way now, which I think misses the point of balancing it in the first place, but I guess there's no rule that says you can't change something just because you feel like it, so whatever. At the end of the day, their goal was to nerf the game's strongest offense, and I think they passed with flying colors, so I could be satisfied. If you watched the video all the way to the end, thank you, and please consider supporting the channel. To get these patch videos out, I pull multiple straight all-nighters, so if you appreciate having them this early, drop a like, sub, or hey, maybe even become a channel member, I don't know. For now though, that's all. This has been Adventure, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.